Hi everyone, it's Tom Mackie. Thanks for joining me today on this gorgeous day in Norfolk. And I've brought you out to my local lighthouse at Haysborough Lighthouse, or as it looks, Happisburgh. Now I was hoping on a day like this, all the farmers are out baling the straw, and I was hoping to get bales of straw in this field. But as you can see, they haven't touched this yet. But it's still really nice because you've got this really golden wheat. So I'm going to do a shot here of this with this predominantly in the foreground, because a lot of people in my workshop say, you know, where do you place the subject in the frame? And this is a really good example, because you can, from one position, you can place this in various different quadrants of the frame. But I always say that give the emphasis to the image of what is most important. So on a scene like this, you can see there's absolutely no clouds, so I wouldn't give much importance to the sky. Obviously, there's a lot more importance to the wheat in the foreground, so I would give that predominance in the frame. So let's go ahead and frame this up. Now I'm going to place this on the third, the top right third, and I've chosen this position because, as you can see, I'm getting perfect side lighting on the lighthouse, and that gives me some really strong saturation when I use a polarizer, which I have right here. The Lee Landscape Polarizer. Let's put that on and dial that in. You can dial that in. You're going to get maximum polarization when the sun is at a right angle to the subject, as it is right now. Often that gives you uneven polarization, so you might want to just dial it back a little bit to make that a little bit more even. Okay, and also on this sort of landscape, the horizon line is actually sloping very slightly. So I might just straighten that up, and then when I shoot, and then I can actually straighten the lighthouse up in post. So now, if I look at this, actually this wheat looks gorgeous. So I'm going to go ahead and try a focus stack on this, and I'm going to shoot it f8. My optimal aperture for this lens, I'm using the 24 to 70 mil lens. And on live view, I've actually put it right down in the very low part of the frame. I'm going to take a picture of my hand just to separate that so I can see where my series is in post. Go into the focus shift shooting and start. Now you can see there's a slight breeze, but that's not a problem, as if you've seen some of my other videos on focus stacking, I can fix that quite easily in post using Zerene Stacker. And if you want to check the in the description below, I'll have a link for that. Okay, now that I'm done, let's go ahead and take a picture there, separate that out, and just check the focus points. That looks good. Now I say there isn't any clouds, but as I was standing here a few minutes ago, there was one little cloud that materialized out of nowhere and just started drifting in, and I caught it just above the lighthouse. So you'll see that at the end of this video. Now let's go ahead and try a vertical on this, because I want to emphasize this foreground. Okay, now what you want to do is when you do switch to a vertical, always remember to adjust your polarizer. Now let's go ahead and put the focus point right down at the bottom of the frame. And focus right there. I'm going to just, again, frame this just so that the lighthouse is just slightly off center in the third of the frame. Okay, now let's go ahead and start that focus stack. Now often people ask me, you know, when do you do a focus stack? When do you use that technique? A lot of people tend to use it all the time, which is a little bit of an overkill, but I always use it when I go beyond the technical capabilities of the lens. If I'm actually zoomed in at roughly 50 mil almost. So, because I want to emphasize the wheat in the foreground, but also keep the size of the lighthouse quite large. But when you do that, your depth of field is quite shallow. Now I could stop down to f22 or whatever, but like I said in my previous videos, that does degrade the image through diffraction. So that's why I'm using my optimal aperture in this case. Let's go ahead and set that. Let her rip. There we go. Now there is one thing about this location that whenever I do shots here, there, as you can see in the background, I don't know if you can make it out, but there is power lines or telegraph poles, and I always take those out. Now I'm often asked how I get those really strong, intense colors in my work, which I've become known for. And it's not a matter of just hitting that saturation slider, because I rarely use that much saturation in post-processing. It's a combination of several things. So it's the time of day. So we've come out here late in the evening and you get that really nice low warm light. It's the angle of light. So we're using side lighting that also helps to bring out the subject. So you can see on the lighthouse that it's perfectly side lit and it gives some nice modeling to the subject. And the same thing in the wheat in the foreground. And filtration. So as I said, I'm using a polarizer. That's going to really intensify those colors by saturating them and bringing those out. And then a little bit of post-processing afterwards. So I'm going to take you back into the studio now and show you how I'm going to put this together using Zerene Stacker and then finishing it off in Luminar. Now that we're back in the studio, I've loaded all the images into Lightroom and I'm going to take you through step by step of how I would work this image up. So let's get started. Okay, as I was looking through these images, I quite like this quirky little cloud that mysteriously appeared out of nowhere and drifted over the lighthouse. So let's go ahead and work on this image. Now, one thing first you should know that when you're doing focus stacks with, say, any camera that does it automatically, like the D850, it will go beyond infinity and start shooting images that are completely not sharp, or out of focus rather. So you need to go through and delete those. So you can easily just zoom in and find those images. I've already deleted 2 or 3 images that weren't necessary. So the first thing I want to do is address this sloping horizon line here. And I've got a grid which I just go up to View and Loop Overlay and select Grid. And that will give me a starting point for lining these up. So what I want to do is rotate. I'm going to hit the correct constrain crop, and then I'm going to rotate my horizon. Now I could do this automatically, but I want to show you how to do it manually, because I know that doing it automatically on this particular occasion, it doesn't work for some reason. Anyway, so this is pretty straight horizon now. It slopes a little bit either side, but now I want to straighten this lighthouse that's falling over. So I'm going to use the vertical and just slide that up until it's as we like. Now that's nice and vertical now. Okay, so that's done. That's as easy as it is. Now what I want to do is apply that same setting to all of these images. So I don't have to do it to every single one of them. So I want to select all. I'm back in Library, select all of them, and then sync the settings. Make sure that you have your transform settings ticked. Hit synchronize, and that should go through. Now let's go ahead and export these. I've created a folder called Stacks on my desktop. I want to export these into that folder, and they're going to be TIFFs 16-bit rather than 8-bit. I want to get them most bit depth as possible, and you can choose any size you like. I just put 18 inches at 300 dpi, export those, and that'll take those into your folder. Then I'm going to open up Zerene Stacker, and let's go down here, open Zerene Stacker. Now that we have our files in our stacks folder, I'm going to select all of them and drag them into Zerene Stacker, into the input files. And once those are loaded in, we're going to go up to stack and align and stack both. And as you see this come in and it's going through each file, you'll see anything that's moving in the scene. So you can see where this weed's been blowing in the wind. And now I'm going to set the contrast threshold, and that'll go through and process that. And anything that's been blowing in the wind is going to create multiple images of that subject. So at this point, I'm going to go through and retouch and correct that. So we'll go to edit and start editing. And let's just go into 100% so you can see the fine details here. Come right down to the bottom. Now, as we go through, you can see if we select the first image, that's our first focus point. So this is nice and sharp. So anything that I'm working on that image is going to transform into the final image over here. So if I just brush across here, I know it's hard to see this with the fine details of the wheat, but anything that's been moving, you'll see if we find something here. There's a little bit there. It will just create just that one image of that. I'll just quickly go there. That was moving quite a bit there. And then what you would do is come up here to the second file, and as it focuses into the scene, and then you would correct that. Just brush over that quickly. The further to the scene that you go, you're not really going to see the fine detail. It's really that area right in front of the camera that you're going to notice anything that's moving and creating multiple images. So I can go through and, but there's one thing I want to show you first. As we go up through the scene, let's go to the top here. You should be aware that any clouds that are moving through will create multiple images. And you can see here, this is kind of jarred where it's loaded up multiple shots of the cloud as it's gone through. So we want to go to our final cloud shot, which is that one, and just watch as I brush over this. It just creates the one cloud. Okay, so now we're finished. We want to commit to retouching. And then we want to export or save that output image and hit the saved, and that's going to take it right back into our stacks folder. Okay, we're done with that. So let's go ahead and go back into Lightroom, and we're going to import that image from our stacks folder. So if we go to stacks, there we go. Now we can see that it's this one right here. It says it's been retouched. We uncheck all and then just check that one and bring that back into Lightroom. And at this point, we're going to take this into Photoshop and correct a few little niggly things that I didn't like that pole. This pole here, the line, a little bit of this coming into the corner. Now I could have cropped in. I didn't really want to for this because I felt that I wanted to give that sort of room around the lighthouse and set it into that third of the composition. But I want to show you how I can easily correct things like this and take these out. So let's go ahead and Control or Command E, and that'll take us into Photoshop. Okay, now I'm going to make quick work of this. Let's just select that using the magic wand tool, hit fill, and that should take that right out. That's great. Okay, we're going to do the same thing to this wire. Now, we can try that on here as well, but as it's right on the horizon, I think it might do something really strange to that horizon line, but let's give it a try. Yeah. Okay, let's just go back, and I would probably just go up here to the cloning brush, select over here, and I'm on 39% opacity. Let's just put that up there. Yeah, let's try that again. There we go. Okay, done. Now, if you get any sort of unevenness with the sky, there's a little bit there. You can just lower the opacity down and select above it, and then just brush over, and that's gone. Okay, now I want to take this in and process this in Lightroom. So let's go ahead and go to Filter, into Luminar. Did I say Lightroom? No, I meant Luminar. Okay, now you can see in our palette down here of looks, there's various different looks that we can go to. But let's try the warm sunset. It comes in at 100%. Let's just reel that back in a little bit. Right about there, I think. This is our before and after. That's pretty good. So if you want to try any other different look, let's just try I like the warm afternoon look that we had there. So I would probably stick with this warmish look to the wheat. But if you want to try anything else, okay, that's really intense. Okay, let's try this, and then you can actually go back. If you click on that, you can see the difference between the two looks. And if there's something in here that you don't really like say the saturation on the sky or the wheat or whatever, you can just make micro adjustments to the color. Let's take this for example. If we want to change the hue of this sky, let's go into color, advanced settings, and just choose the blue, and we can drop the saturation back as much as you like or increase it. But I think I'm just going to keep that where it was. I quite like that. Now you can see this is really nice and punchy already. The reds are really vibrant. The blues are not bad. In fact, I would say compared to my Velvia days of shooting film, this doesn't compare to the saturation that Velvia had. But you know, I think I like the way that is. It's not going a little bit too far over the top. Anyway, and let's just go ahead and apply that. And this will take the image back into Lightroom. There we go. So now it's actually back in Photoshop, sorry. And then if I'm finished with it, you can save it back into Lightroom. Okay, there you have it. That's our final image. And let's just do a comparison. And that was our before. And there's our after. So you can see that's given some really nice punchy warm light to this, and it was quite quick and easy to work this up. So I hope you've enjoyed this today, coming out with me to Haysborough Lighthouse, and you've picked up some tips. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. It really helps us out quite a bit, and hit those like buttons. It helps the algorithms to enable us to bring you fresh new content in the future. But until the next video, bye for now.